All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Annette, and you might know me as Nettersplays. And today we have several other people here. So we have Mandi, Erin, and Crystal. So we all work, or actually don't work, but we all make content in the board gaming world. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Mandi, I'll start with you.
So, hey everyone, I'm Mandi Hutchinson. You know me from To Die For Games, and also, I guess it would be most recently, from the Dice Tower, doing stints on Board Game Breakfast, as well as doing the podcast with the lovely Miss Suzanne Sheldon every 2 weeks.
Cool. And Erin?
Hey, I'm Erin LaFlamme. You probably know me from Cardboard Republic and from Great Way Games.
Cool. And Crystal?
I am Crystal Pisano, and some of you probably know me from either Favorite Game Friday on Instagram and the Dice Tower, or the Board Game Blitz podcast and YouTube channel.
Cool. So, and I'm Nettersplays, and you could see me on YouTube and also Twitter and Instagram and such. Collaborating with a whole bunch of different people, usually all the time. So I guess just to kind of break the ice and just talk about some games. So what have you guys been playing lately? If you want to go ahead and talk about something that you played recently, either you liked it or disliked it, just tell us what you've been playing, Crystal.
Well, a couple, let's see. So I've been playing through the campaign for Near and Far recently.
Ooh,
oh yeah,
duck. I'm so jealous.
So it's interesting because every time I'd heard somebody talk about this, I was like, that sounds like something I would really like. It's light worker placement. It's got story elements. It's all over it. And a friend of mine and I have been playing it 2-player, which has been great because you get to do, I think, more story-related stuff with a 2-player game than you would in like a 4-player game.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so much fun. We've been barreling through the campaign. I think we have 3 maps left in, I think there's like 10 or 11 total. And we've just been playing it for like a month, and we've just been full speed ahead on all of it. And it is the best. I love it so much.
Can you fly over to Canada and come and play with me? Because my friends are so inconsistent. I have not gotten past like the second one.
Yes, I'm on my way right as we actually, Weird Al Yankovic is going to be touring North America in 2018, and we are considering dates up in Canada, my friend and I, that are planning on traveling to go see him because I'm a nerd.
See, so we can all, maybe he'll come to Ottawa, and then we can all go together.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Nice.
Have you played the character mode first?
Not yet. We just so we did just the campaign. There's like the intro map kind of to like teach you, and then there's the actual like campaign. And we did the intro first, and then we just have started playing through each of the maps. And yeah, we just finished, I think, the 8th one, whatever that is, yesterday. We did 2 yesterday.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that is
cool.
cool.
It's a lot of fun. I don't know. I have friends that have been playing it 4-player, and I feel like it's probably better with 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't usually play a lot of 2-player games, but yeah. I mean, it just, well, if you like the story elements, I guess. If you just are in it for light worker placement game, then any player count would be fine. But if you want more of the story, because like when you do the story stuff, sometimes you get a keyword that will affect later adventures, and you get side quests. And so obviously with more people, I know you do add more of the little book tokens to the board when you play with more, but I still think it, math-wise, I think we end up getting more of it in a 2-player game. It feels like it, at least.
Yeah, I've played that with the character mode as a 2-player game, and it's a really good game. Like, I really like developing the story and getting into what the characters' lives or past lives are and what they're searching for in the campaign. But yeah, it's a really good game. I like it.
Sorry, I'm not doing my job over here. So James and Braziel and Meeple Lady are in the chat, and they're saying a hello. So.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
So yeah, what have you been playing, Erin?
So I had a really fun game of Arkham Horror yesterday. It's
nice.
Like really got me into gaming because I love the storytelling parts of it. And I got to introduce a couple of new friends to it. So friends, a couple of them are gamers. They just hadn't played Arkham. They had only played Eldritch. And a couple of the people who like aren't really gamers, but are really into horror and that kind of story anyway, and they wanted to try it. So we played, it lasted about 5 hours, which is longer than we anticipated because I forgot how much time it took to play Arkham with people who hadn't played a lot before, just because there's so much to explain and think about. But we have the process pretty streamlined. Ryan, my husband, plays like with all of the cards out, and so he can just like grab them. He has like 2 tray tables and the actual table like surrounding him, like this weird like Arkham Horror console. But it was really fun. It was I haven't gotten to play that in quite a while. And I don't know, it's so hard to figure out whether I prefer Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror. I think my heart still belongs to Arkham just because it was like the first one. Yeah.
I don't think one of
Arkham. Oh, have you not? I've played my first game of Arkham Horror was, we'll say, interesting. I think we played at the highest player count. It was my first time playing.
Oh God.
Yeah, I literally had turns where I had to get up and walk away because there was nothing I could do for like 4 turns. Yeah. And I was just like, and I'm not adverse to playing longer games, but I was just like, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? And the person who was teaching it to us was like, yeah, it's not normally this long. Yeah, I was gonna say long, but yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience.
I find that it's like so hit or miss. And I mean, part of that is just, it's like really luck based. And if you're not rolling well, it's gonna kind of suck. But it's still, I still love it, but I also really recognize why a lot of people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to play it again though. So let me just, I can't base it off of that one play, but I have played the LCG, but I would like to play Arkham Horror again.
Yeah.
Maybe
the
at a
LCG
smaller.
Intrigues me.
I have not played it yet.
I haven't, and I think I would really dig it.
So it's fun. We did a live stream of it on the Twitch and whatnot, and it's really good. So we're hoping to do another one actually, because now we're streaming on Dice Tower. So we're hoping to do another one of that as well.
Nice,
so.
Cool.
I should just watch yours and
see if you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So recently I've played. Actually, yesterday I played Chimera Station.
I saw your pictures on that.
Yeah, so it's this box right
I
here.
love how Annette always has her boxes like right there for show.
Yeah.
So good.
Always prepared.
You are. That's amazing.
So Chimera Station is a worker placement game, and but it's all about these different little workers, and they're modular. So you can add on new features like tentacles and like little claws or a brain or something like that, and you can physically add it to your worker. So then when you put down that specific worker, say for example he has tentacles, and if you put them in a certain spot, instead of picking up 3 coins or 2 cheeseburgers, you'll pick up an extra cheeseburger or an extra coin. So so it's pretty cool. Like it's I like that element of just like having a physical view of what you're placing down, and it's all like a toy in a way, and then you're placing it and it actually has a purpose. It's not just for show. It's because the worker is much improved than the other workers that you have. We got into the game, like we read the rules, and we were in the game like only 15 minutes to read the rules. Like it was super quick, and we were like already had it set up. We started reading the rules. It was like 4 pages long, and we started playing. We didn't go back into the rule book, so the iconography was great. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't difficult, but it was enjoyable.
I have to say, I'm 2 things. I didn't think the box was that big when I initially had seen the game, and I was worried that it was going to be gimmicky.
Right.
So, but you're saying it's not. Like it was fun. Yeah,
like it is a gimmick, but it has a purpose. So just like the meeples in the Tiny Epic Quest
Right.
game.
I love the item meeples.
Yeah, like
I
they're
haven't
so
played it yet.
cute. But they have a purpose too, because certain characters will carry around swords and stuff, so they have a purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, it's one that I kind
that's
of
what I
looked at and
played.
went, but if you're saying it's good, maybe I should give it a try.
It's really easy. It's not something like groundbreaking, except for the actual meeples.
Hmm. Okay, cool.
Just like any other worker placement, though.
That's okay though. Something light. You got to throw the light ones in every so often.
Right.
Has anybody else played them? Played that one?
No.
No? Okay.
I want to now, though.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying. Very cool. So I've had a light week. We won't talk about why, but I haven't had too much gaming. I think I'll talk about something delicious. I played Sunday Split the other night. I finally got to the table in between some other games, and that one is by Renegade Games. I don't know if any of you have tried it yet. I don't know if it's available, but it literally is a game about building the best sundae ever. And you don't want any vegetables because those are going to give you negative points.
Obviously.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, hello, I am all about the broccoli. Thank you very much. But apparently that's like -3 points. So we do not want
your
broccoli.
ice cream? I mean, come on. Like,
it could be tasty.
oh gosh. Like, I'm okay with like savory and sweet. Like, you put some bacon in the ice cream and I'm down. But broccoli, I'm out.
Okay, I might be pushing it. Enough people think I'm kind of gross with no, because I like cheese on my apple pie. It tastes really good.
Okay, that's a real thing.
That's a thing.
I've had that before.
That's a real thing. Also, here's a fun one that most people don't know. If you go to a place that serves cheese curds, like the mild cheddar cheese curds, get a side of caramel sauce and dip them in caramel.
It's good.
So
Thank
good.
you very much. So St. Albert's cheese curds, by the way, are the best. They need the squeak. So that's what I'm telling you. That's a good cheese curd. Anyway, I digress. Oh gosh. See, now I've got a whole conversation happening now about what is this? Concerned onlooker, French fries dipped in Wendy's shakes. Actually,
Yes.
that is actually really good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've had that with
Fries and
In-N-Out.
Frosty.
Good job. So basically, the game is really straightforward. You end up having to split cards. Like someone is the chosen splitter of cards to determine, who's getting what, and some are hidden and some are not. So you could be getting some really good stuff, but you could also be getting those bad vegetables, which give you negative points. Anyway, overall, it's a light game, and it's exactly like with the game that Annette was talking about. It's not breaking any new ground here, but it's a nice, fun, light, like lunchtime type game in between filler. So I thought it was cute. Sunday Split.
Cool.
Renegade, so far, I have not played a single game of theirs that I didn't at least enjoy, if not love. Like, I haven't played a game of theirs and been like, I didn't like that. That hasn't happened yet. So it basically, whatever they put out, I will try at this point.
Yeah.
They're on fire right now.
They kind of are.
Yeah, they're really good. And they've been producing so many games. Like just this 1 year, they've produced way more games than any other publishing company out there, really.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And they have more coming. It's crazy.
Right. So today's topic, we're just going to go over kind of the reason why we're here, as far as playing board games, what got us into it, and what motivated us to take the next step and kind of just create content. And it's not something that a lot of people do, but we did it. So kind of what motivated us to create content, what motivated us to either pick up a camera and start filming ourselves, or start writing a blog, or also picking up a microphone and podcasting with people across the nation. What got us here? So my question to you is pretty much what got you into the hobby, and also what motivated you to make the switch from being just a board gamer and into a content creator?
Well, for me, they happened really close together. I like to be involved. I get invested 100% pretty much immediately. So I started playing board games. My first game was Settlers, like most people. And then my second game was Arkham Horror. And that was when...
You jumped in head first.
I told you, 100%. So Arkham Horror was the one that made me really realize that, oh, wow, that there's this whole like world here. And it's really fun. And there is so much opportunity. And so I think... I just was exploring board games for a couple of years until I got out of my undergrad. And then about a year after that, my husband and I were just talking like, hey, we play all these games. We kind of want to talk about them with other people. Like it was getting to the point where we were like burning out our friend group too. Like, we don't care, like stop. So that sort of spurred it on at first. And it's so nice. And one of the things that really kept us going in those early days of it is that, you have a job, like all of us have jobs outside of board games, and those can be going really well, but it's still so nice to have this creative outlet that's like totally under your control and totally under your own creative energy to pour yourself into. And so that's what really, really kept us going and spurred on Cardboard Republic. For Great Way Games, it was a little bit different because I had been involved for years at that point, and I just decided, we kind of wanted to have a different part of the conversation. We were sick of whenever women are asked to talk about games, that it was at that point always like talking about being a woman in games, and we're like, well, we just want to talk about like playing games or like things about the culture around games. So that's kind of what brought us there. Yeah.
Yeah. And to touch on that last point you said, that's exactly something that I know I've been struggling with as of late. People asking me to speak about, being a woman or a person of color or whatever in board gaming. And it's fine, but I don't want to be pegged into just talking about that. I actually do know something about board games, and I don't think people intentionally do that. That's not at all what I'm saying. But it's nice to just be asked because I know something.
Right.
It actually, that kind of flows into what I'll get into for mine. So I got into the hobby back in 2007. So it's been 10 years, which is kind of crazy. A friend of mine, or a coworker of mine, actually invited me to a game night at his house when I was still living in Kansas City. And he owned games like St. Petersburg and Race for the Galaxy and Power Grid, Robo Rally, kind of a bunch of the modern classics, as it were. And the one that really like kind of blew my mind was Runebound, which it was the second edition of Runebound at that point. Like we were all graveyard employees at the place we worked at, and so we would usually start gaming on our night off around like 10 p.m. and we'd play Runebound. We'd start at like 10 or 11 and we'd go until like 4 or 5 in the morning in a single game. And I'd never known that a game could be that epic. And that I think is kind of what really like sucked me in. And then when I moved to Vegas, I lost that game group, but I started building my own collection. And then I started going to a meetup group here in town, which I now informally am in charge of.
Don't you love how that happens?
I have power on meetup.com to edit the thing. That's really like all it is. But as far as content creation, a few years ago, I started writing articles for a small website. I don't write for them anymore, but it's called WeTheNerdy.com, and most of their content was comic book and video game related. But the guy who runs it was like, oh, maybe we should have some board game content. So I wrote some stuff for him, which was great. And their website is still really cool, but they haven't really kept up with the board game stuff as much. And then I was on Reddit in the summer of 2015, and on the board game subreddit, someone had asked, what's missing in board game podcasts? And a whole bunch of people were bringing up two themes that were similar, is that there weren't enough short podcasts. Like all of the real good ones were super long, which, it doesn't matter how good it is if you don't have time to listen. Right. And they said there's not enough women. And so me and Ambi Valdez and Cassidy Thomas, who all at the time did not know that each other existed in any way, shape, or form, all commented in that thread and were like, to something along the lines of, hey, I could do that. And so then we messaged each other privately on Reddit and we were like, should we do that? And then, so then we started talking on Facebook, and it took us about 9 months actually from that first conversation, getting to know each other. Cassidy had a baby in the interim, and then we launched the podcast. But kind of what you were saying, Erin, is there were no other podcasts at that moment that were entirely women. There were a lot of good ones that had women contributors, but none that were all women. And we didn't want it to be about the fact that we were women. We just wanted to be all women. And so like we made it a big point early on not to like tout that fact. Like we just wanted people to kind of realize it organically, because we didn't want to be shoving it in people's faces. And like what Mandi was saying, we didn't want to be pigeonholed into the only reason we were doing it is because we were women. That just is what happened to bring us together. But we wanted to create the same kind of content that you would get from any other board game podcast. And yeah, we've been going about 1.5 years now, and it is the best thing. I love it. And Ambi and Cassidy are now 2 of my very best friends. And it's so cool.
And now you have a convention going on too.
Yes,
I know.
Con in February. There's only 100 tickets, so if people want to come, they should buy one now.
Awesome. Hey,
well, there's 99 tickets because I have one.
Oh yeah, and I have too. So. I'm excited to play games with you again.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun then. But yeah, sort of similar with myself too. Like just I ended up playing a few games, and I first started with a lot of social deduction games, and I'm not a big social deduction gamer now, but I didn't really like that interaction. And then I think I picked up Citadels, and Citadels has some sort of social deduction, but it's also like you're building your own like tableau too. And so I like that part of it. And then I kind of developed into other games, you know, what else is there? What else is there? And I kept on questioning, kept on going to the game stores and purchasing and playing. And it also helped out that Mitch and I, we kind of got into it at the same time. So he was also like, oh yeah, let's try this new one. So we both were exploring the whole hobby together. And I only been in this hobby for like a few years. I think it's been like 3 or 4 years. And so I'm fairly new, I guess, but since then I have like over 400 games.
Are you serious?
That's crazy. I love it.
And I started acquiring so many games, and I was like, well, you know, I should probably like, I want to talk about them, but I don't want to talk my friends' ears off all the time about these new games. So I thought, well, let's record something. And I just got on my webcam and started recording. And then I didn't know how to edit, so I just sent it off on YouTube, and that's where it went. And since then, I've learned like so many different programs, and you know, I learned like how to edit and how to record and lighting and everything, and I've developed since then. And it's been 1.5 years, almost 2 years, that I've been like making YouTube videos.
That's awesome.
You know, actually, I feel like we have this connection because we kind of started around the same time and got to know each other through doing it. So it's cool to see where we've kind of all ended up, you know, in that respect. So yeah, I think that's really neat.
All right. So what have you you kind of got started on the same path too? I remember seeing you on Instagram as well.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I started on the whole Instagram circuit, so I was really good with the pictures. And then after I kind of went, wait a second, I don't feel there's anyone that looks like me. And when I say that, I talk, you know, like crazy hair color, you know, I like to be out there a little bit. I used to be, you know, a teacher, so I like to, you know, really get people involved and doing it in a fun way, like I'm sure all of you do as well. And so I said to my friend, hey, let's jump in and try and do this. So the game that actually got me into the hobby, this is very funny. I actually started off with games like, you know, well, let's go way back. I always played board games with my family. That is like, we always had family time and it was a must. We played board games certain nights. Oh yeah, but it was fun. And I used to play a lot of Mahjong back in the day. But anyway, then I started playing games like, you know, Takenoko and things like that. And then Firefly So this is early on. Someone goes, oh, here, let's play this game. And I love Firefly. Firefly, all the expansions. I'm like, good.
Oh, gosh.
What is this? 2 tables of gaming goodness, but I was like, wow. Can I tell you, I loved every minute of it. So it was fantastic. But really, when I was getting involved in this, it was really just to have more people that were like me in any way that they connected to, whether it's my hair color, my skin tone, I'm a whatever. You just like what I talk about, you know, so anybody could feel that connection. So yeah, so that's why the glasses, exactly. Right. If you like retro, and I mean, sure, I'm all about that. But I'm just going to jump over to the chat. There's a few people here. I had asked the question about what got people into the hobby, if you all don't mind. So Anthony says hello to everyone, and glad to be here listening to us. And he said that he got into the hobby via CCGs back in the early 2000s. So I know that's a lot of people who actually fall into that category. I don't know if that's something that all of you are into.
I did never pick up the CCGs, although my husband plays Magic now, so there are a lot of Magic cards in my house.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see behind me, but Ryan's Magic collection is like over my left shoulder, and he's played forever, and he collects them, and it's just like, my history of CCGs is when I first met Ryan, and I was like, oh, he's cute. I think I'll learn how to play Magic, because that's what he did. And then once we actually started dating and like we had other things to do, I was like, okay, real talk. I hate this game. You're really great. I'm not going to learn how to play Magic anymore.
Magic is a really cool game that takes a lot of time and money to play well and frequently.
Right.
So,
and it's one of those that I feel like it's really hard to just jump in. It reminds me a lot of comic books sometimes, where you have these like long running arcs. And if you are a total outsider, it is hard to just figure out where you're supposed to start. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that you were so upfront. No, that's good. Just lay it out. I love that.
Oh, he knows.
So we have Karen. So I was talking about learning civilization in school back in the 80s, killing aliens on city streets after dark, and in snowstorms in the 21st century, and a midlife career shift. So that's a lot of things that, have made her entry to board. That's amazing. So it's glad to see that there are other things that made her, shift. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Meeple Lady, who I think all of us know or are familiar with. Ticket to Ride as a gift 7 years ago, and opened up my world about games other than Monopoly. Then a few years back, an ex-boyfriend said I should write about board gaming, and here we are.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And lastly, we have James, and thanks for holding it down in the chat, James. We appreciate it. Played a lot of RPGs and have transitions to board games after college. Takes less planning and prep. And the first hobby game was bought in '99, X-Men Under Siege, because he was a comic nut.
Nice.
So there you go. So thank you to the chat for providing us with some insight into your gaming background. Cool. So Annette, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, so it does take a lot of time to make this content. And so what kind of adjustments do you make to your ordinary life and your schedules or timing and the things that you have to learn and such? So what kind of challenges have you faced during that time of learning or trying to make the time and effort for this content? And how have you overcome those challenges?
So Annette, why don't you tell us about you? Why don't you go and tell us?
Yeah, so as far as myself, like we all have jobs that we all go to every day, like Monday through Friday, and then I usually don't work from like 9 to 5. I work from like 10 to however late. I usually get home around 7, maybe 8, 9, or 10 at night. And then if I have time to play a game, I want to play a game. But then most of my nights, it's just kind of like editing, filming, just thinking about like what I'm going to talk about. And then when I finally get home, like that late in the evening, I'll just try to do as much work as I can. So it's a lot of time and it's really consuming, but I mean, I get something out of it, like that creative outlet. And so I just see it as something that, why am I going to do something that I don't enjoy? And because I do enjoy it, that's why I'm doing it. So that's my take on it. But yeah, how is it with blogging or podcasting?
Well, it's interesting for me with podcasting since the three of us live in different parts of the country. Right. And I know that that's becoming more common now in podcasts, but for a long time, I don't think that was the case. I think most group podcasts were people that knew each other and that sat in a single room and had a conversation. But I think one of the weird benefits about doing it so disjointed is we can't throw something together last minute as easily. So we have to be pretty organized and scheduled out in advance. So we tend to record 2 episodes at a time. And since we release episodes bi-weekly, that means generally we only have to get together as a group about once a month. So that's not that bad. And then as far as other content goes, I'm not writing a lot of content right now. I do have a blog post that I've been working on for a while about the roll and write game that I designed for the Gen Can't contest, because I wanted to write something for other people who are like me, who had never designed a game before and maybe wanted to try. But yeah, I don't do a lot of other content currently. I have helped Ambi with some song parody stuff for our YouTube channel. I wrote the one that we just did not too long ago. We did a parody of the 10 Dual Commandments from Hamilton called The 9 Games with Weird Themes. And I wrote the lyrics for that. And then I recorded a lot of my content first and then sent it over to Ambi, and she worked her magic on it after the fact and added in all the extra tracks and whatnot. But I tend to burn myself out on things if I go a little bit too hard at them. And I don't ever want board games or board game content to become something that I don't want to do. So I tend to limit the amount of time that I spend putting into content creation to some degree, just so it doesn't feel like a job.
It's funny you say that. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's exactly my sentiment. Exactly. And I have a tendency to go hard when I do things. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. And on that note, James has said the parodies are really good.
Oh, yeah. And that's, for the most part, that's all Ambi. Like I wrote the lyrics for that most recent one. And I obviously, like, we helped with our 1-year anniversary when we did the Ballroom Blitz parody. We all kind of pitched in on that. But most of the parodies are 100% Ambi. People should go check out her YouTube channel. Like, the Board Game Blitz YouTube channel is great, but if you go to, I think it's Ambi Rona is the name, but search for Ambi's whatever and go see her other parodies. She has tons that she's been doing over the past couple of years, and they're all great.
That's so cool.
So awesome.
For me,
leave a link down below too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, for me, I am really, really bad at any kind of like work-life balance thing. I don't know. I'm a social worker, and it's like, in order to get into that field, it needs to be something that you really feel passionately about. And so it obviously bleeds over into other parts of my life, and other parts of my life bleed over into that. And for the most part, that's not a huge problem. But I know lately with school and the website and my real job and my internship and Great Way Games, it is tough.
Right.
That's a lot.
So there are actually only so many hours in a day. And so I think for me, trying to find that balance is only something I've relatively recently started to work on, trying to limit the amount of time that I'm spending on any of those to like a reasonable amount, and trying to keep them relatively separate is something that's been really, really challenging. I wouldn't necessarily say I've overcome it yet. I have started keeping a really intense like schedule of when I can do things and when I need to be doing something else, just to make sure that I'm, on top of things. And I think learning whatever organizational system works for you and sticking with it has been the biggest thing.
That's the key. Sticking with it. That's exactly. You hit the nail on the head right there.
Right. Because it can be like, I love making lists. It's super fun to make a list. But if you're going to make a list and then never look at it again, like you just wasted a bunch of time. Right. But like I will put like make to-do list at the top of my to-do list because that actually keeps me invested. Yes. And then I check something off and then I keep going. But yeah, like whatever works for you. It's different for everyone, but that has been the biggest thing for me. And also having like regular time for just gaming has been really important. Like having dedicated game groups. And I thank my friends so much for making that like actually possible by still wanting to hang out with us even when we're like, so we're not sure if this game is any good or not, and it's gonna be 3 hours. But
see, and that's why they're your friends.
Right. But we'll feed you.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So this is a question for me this week, I gotta tell you. So I don't know if everybody knows, I have my own channel, and it's under To Die For Games, which I have a few people that are on this channel that work with me. So there's Carol and Michael, Stefan and Tracy, and that's just the video team. We also have a blog that James, our blogger James, kind of runs that for me. We have a blog in French with Christian and a few other people that we're bringing on. So I don't think people realize it's a lot happening there. And then most recently, I mean, I've always done things with the Dice Tower. And most recently, the podcast, which is probably the biggest thing that I do because we are now part of the Dice Tower, and it's a lot. So I think that's probably the one I could talked about a bit more because that's the one where we're still continually having to make adjustments, right? I'm the type of person, I laugh a lot. That's just how it is. I like to be flashy. That's just how it is. My mom's like, you've always been like that growing up. That's who you are. That's how it is. You have to... It's hard to kind of cater to what people want to a certain degree and not lose yourself. And I think that's something for me that I have to remember. Yeah, not everyone, my mother always told me, in this world, not everyone's going to like you. That's okay. As long as you're surrounding yourself with positive people and you can be positive, that's all you need to worry about. And then there are people that will enjoy what you're doing and will like what you're doing. So I think coming to kind of adjustments I've made, adjustments at listening to myself, but also taking in what people can suggest and making it work with me or with Suzanne or whoever I'm working at, and we're not losing ourselves. I think that would probably be the biggest challenge, biggest kind of adjustment that I'm still continually making. With everything. And like, I'm new to podcasting. I've never done a podcast in my life. Suzanne and I didn't have the opportunity to spend months, weeks, years getting to know each other.
You guys kind of just got thrown in.
Yeah,
that's it. And don't get me wrong, we get along really well, but it takes time to develop a cadence and a flow to a podcast, as I'm sure you can attest to, especially you, Crystal. I mean, you do a podcast with people that you met face to face.
Yes. And yeah, we had never met in person until 9 months after we started releasing episodes. Like, we were talking online, but we'd talked on video chat, but we'd never even met technically for the first 9 months of us doing stuff. And I do want to say, Mandi, I think people like to think that the Dice Tower, since it is such a long established podcast in its entirety, that stuff should just all be the same always.
Right.
The quality of content that you two have been putting out, considering that your weeks essentially are a new podcast, is mind-blowingly good. Like, no, like, here's the deal. Like, people are going to hate on stuff for whatever reasons, and we don't have to get into the negative stuff, but the quality of the shows that you guys have been putting out, how well organized it is, how good it sounds, the rapport that you guys have already formed with one another is amazing. And just keep being yourself, and people are eventually going to fall in love with you, like a whole bunch of us already have. So just don't let the haters get you down, is all I'm going to say.
You're gonna make me cry. But no, I really appreciate it because I know it's different. We get a lot of that. We're not the Dice Tower. We are different than what people are used to. So I really appreciate that. And I know, I've spoken to Annette and other people, and we really, really appreciate it because we do spend, if I showed people the scripts that we have, before we go on air. It is so detailed. Even Tom was like, wow, this is impressive. Because we want it to be really, really good, you know? And I'm just looking at the chat here. So thank you, James. He said it's a great life lesson when I was talking about, not losing yourself, and don't, kind of succumb to pressure from people. And so thank you. And that's for everyone. It's not just for us. That's just in general. Yeah, to thine own self be true. And that is exactly it. So I thank you to everyone who's being really supportive. Everyone's been great. And so we would love to have, eventually our hope is to have guests on the show like you, Crystal, and you, Erin, and you, Annette. But we're trying to get people to get used to just Suzanne and I first.
Right. You have to establish your own
correct
rhythm and everything before you can bring someone else in.
And that's exactly it. We've been asked and we've told people, let us figure out us. And then we'll be able to bring other people in, to join in the fun. But give us some time to get people used to it and for us to get used to it. And and then we'll bring that all in. So that for us is the biggest thing. Have we fully overcome things? No, of course not. But we're always learning, and people should always be learning and taking it in. So that's definitely something that we're looking into. So, oh gosh, people in the chat, you're all awesome. Thank you. So that's it. And that's my little fast. Oh my God, seriously, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna start tearing up.
It's really hard. You yourself are working on something individually or with someone else, and you're working behind the screen, you're working on your own personal time, and then to present it out there in the internet and the interwebs and everyone to consume it. It's really another challenge that you have to face. But I think you've all done very well. I think just not feeding the trolls or anything and just kind of pushing along and just still doing what you are doing is just the important thing, and not listening to everyone else and just figuring it out for yourself is really great. But
exactly.
Anyways,
and before we jump into the next thing, and this is actually coming back to something that Annette and Crystal were talking about. James is wanting to know about the convention. Do we have details about that, or is that somewhere we can put details?
Yes, I can.
Like where, when, that sort of thing.
I can say, so if you actually go to the Board Game Blitz website, if you go to boardgameblitz.com/con, C-O-N, the information should be there. There is also an event on Facebook for it, and there's a page for Board Game BlitzCon. But again, this is not a big fancy con. This is it's President's Day weekend in February. It's 4 days. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Tickets are $60 for all 4 days. And it's basically almost entirely just open gaming. So if you want to come to San Francisco and just play games with 100 people for 4 days, then this is the con for you. It is small. We had a lot of fun last year, though. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, I want to go. It sounds so good.
But you're going to some pretty fun stuff coming up pretty soon.
Yes, I know. Well, and this is, and that's going to intro us into the next big one.
Nice segue.
Right. I'm getting better
so
at those.
So Essen is coming up. And so how are we preparing, not just as a gamer? We have to look at over 800 different games that are coming out in Essen, but as content creators, how are we facing that flood of games right now? And what are you looking forward to as well?
Oh wow. Okay. This is such an overwhelming thing to think about when you're right in the middle of it. Thankfully, I am not the one in charge of going through BGG's giant Essen release list, but I know Ryan has been poring over it every night for about a couple weeks, I think.
Oh, wow.
And trying to figure out what games on here are things that we do want to cover. What games can we, are just, not for us, we're not gonna spend a lot of time on them. And what games do we want to try to get? We're not going to Essen. So, but we thankfully have a lot of friends. So we have some access to some of the games coming back. So it's just a matter of figuring out what like putting games into different categories of like, we want to cover this, but it'll be released by a major US publisher within 6 months. So we're not going to stress about it now. Or we want to cover this and we need to figure out how we're going to get it home from Germany. Which is like always a struggle. And I feel like what other industry or hobby is one of your major issues? Like, how do I get this thing home from Germany? The number of conversations we've just spent logistically on getting things from Germany is ridiculous. But you know, I cleaned up our game room. We're ready. We don't have any shelf space, but we have some floor space now. So mostly it's just like, I don't know. I use a lot of this Essen time when everyone else is focused on everything new that's coming out to kind of refocus myself on my own priorities for the site and everything, because Essen isn't a thing I really have to participate in. So it's like my own time where the rest of the board game world is distracted. And I can be like, okay, while they're all looking over there, I'm like frantically making my lists and trying to plan my like next 6 months. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, that's me these days. There's just so much.
Yeah, I've been looking at the list and I generally just go through it briefly and kind of look at the publishers that I'm interested in and the designers. And so that way I just focus on that because there's just so many games. I can't look at every single one. And I know I'm going to skip out on one that's really good and I'll find out about it later.
But that's okay.
So, which is fine. You know, but the one games that I'm really interested in, I'm going to make a vlog about it. So I'm going to do like a top 10 video vlog of the games I really am expecting. And since then, I've also pre-ordered a bunch of games, so I'm going to BGG Con, and so Fun Again Games, they have a muling kind of pre-order, so they'll pick up a bunch of games and then they'll bring them to BGG, and I'll be there at BGG and I'll pick the new games from Essen and then I'll get to play them then.
I'm going to jump in here because it's so true and it's actually on my list too, but James is like, the alpaca bag builder is Netter's go-to from Essen. So Altiplano is the game. Altiplano.
Yeah,
nice.
That's the game that I actually been wishing for the longest time. I'm like, there needs to be a llama farming game, and that's like my one game I really want. And it's by the same designer as Orleans, which is like awesome. So my wish came true. I'm hoping it's good.
No, as soon as I saw that game, I was like, oh yeah, that is Annette. Literally, your name was like on the box.
I say Annette.
That's it. Not even Altiplano, just Annette.
It's interesting. My approach to Essen is pretty different. Since we don't necessarily like do in-depth reviews of games, we kind of will talk about what we've been playing recently, but we don't, and that could be considered a review, but we don't seek out games to review typically. Right. I've kind of taken a step back and not really gotten hyped up about Essen, primarily because if I get in too deep and I'm not going there and some of those games aren't coming over to the States right away, I tend to get excited about something I can't have, and that's not fun. No. So I do know a few things that are coming out at Essen, and I am aware of the stuff that's happening, but I'm not stressing about it. I haven't really pre-ordered much of anything yet. There are a couple of games coming out this fall, although like the one that I'm looking forward to the most isn't even an Essen release, and I don't know when it's coming out. So.
What game is it?
An expansion for Star Trek Ascendancy, the board expansion.
Oh, nice.
I should have known the answer to that.
Gale Force 9, they're releasing little bits and pieces about it here and there, and they say Q4 still of this year, but they haven't nailed down a date, and I want the Borg so much.
I love that you love that so much. No, seriously, I love it.
Me and Star Trek, we have a thing, and that dates back to my childhood. Also, new Star Trek show, Star Trek Discovery. People should be watching it. It's really good. I know that the paywall CBS All Access is ridiculous. I get it. Please, please, please pay for it and watch this show. It's so good.
Now, is that an American set only? I wonder if because we just get PBS on the regular. So
in Canada, there's some streaming service that I can't remember the name of that gets it. And then in most of the world, it's actually on Netflix. But in America only,
What?
CBS, yes,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
awful.
Because I was gonna say I think it's something that we would probably have access to.
I
So
cannot remember for the life of me. There's a specific streaming service that isn't in America that is in Canada that has it, and I don't know what the name of it is, but a quick Google search would probably pull that up.
okay, good to know.
But yeah, the first 2 episodes are like a prequel for the entire series. Like they kind of give you all the backstory and set it up. And then there have been episodes 3 and 4 since then. And I just love it so much. And the cast is the most diverse and wonderful cast that Star Trek has ever put on screen. And it's just great. So
Okay, well,
sorry, that was a huge tangent. That's not Essen related at all.
It's okay, because actually someone's saying that James is saying Netflix has a deal in UK and Canada. That's what he believes. So
okay.
So
yeah, I know that in other countries you can watch it on Netflix, but not in the United States. It's CBS All Access only, which is either $5.99 a month with commercials or $9.99 a month without commercials.
Without the commercials. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're not the only one who wants to know about it, because it's in the chat here. So it was a good tangent. So you're safe. But
I have to make sure that a season 2 of that show happens, so I have to get other people to watch it. I think it sounds like it's been really popular so far, though, so I'm not too scared about the renewal.
Oh, good. Yeah, that happened to me with Constantine. We won't talk about it. It makes me really angry. Yeah, 1 season. Okay, so in the chat, we have people talking about cons in general, big cons, small cons. A lot of people talking about, Gen Con, BGG Con. I personally find Gen Con a lot. It does take my anxiety to a whole other level. I did enjoy BGG. I found it to be like a more intimate experience. We had a great time in it. I had a fun time there.
It was memorable. It was awesome.
Yeah, memorable would be the word. Memorable, yeah. And I don't know if the rest of you, Erin or Crystal, have been to BGG at all.
I haven't been to BGG. It always happens at a time that I just can't take off work or school.
Okay.
But I'm hopeful that after I graduate next year, it'll be BGG year.
Oh, fantastic. No, it'll be that's supposed to be a good one. So the people are just talking about that in the chat. And Azul, which I own and have played. People are talking about that. So James has pre-ordered that. Oh, cutie. Oh, my dogs are not in here.
Sterling wanted to say hi.
But so there you go. So Azul, if you all haven't played it, it's good. So for myself with Essen, well, I think it's hard because right now I feel like I'm kind of neglecting to tie 4 games a little bit with Essen because I'm going with as Dice Tower. So it'll be really focusing on Dice Tower, the podcast. And oh my gosh, hence the reason we were a little bit late, everyone. It's totally my fault. Trying to get the podcast started for Essen because we have to release one during Essen. We filmed with Tom and Eric to do our top 10 anticipated games for Essen, and then coming back we'll have to get something. So it's been a lot of that, preparing for that. I'm not a pre-order type of girl, but after I've heard Annette talking about pre-orders, Eric and Suzanne are talking about pre-orders, I'm like, okay, can I be pre-ordering stuff? So I just pre-ordered like 4 games. Altiplano was one, and I don't want to give away too much because it'll be on the podcast on Tuesday, but and we did like 4, and they gave me some tricks on how to pack everything. So apparently I'm to bring a carry-on suitcase, which is going to be very difficult for me because, normally it takes a lot to get this whole thing happening. So that's going to be hard. And then I bought a bigger suitcase. It's actually like, oh my God, it's so big. And it's purple, of course.
Awesome.
So it's my really, really big one. And then I'm supposed to put one that's slightly smaller into that one. So empty. So when I come back, I'll have 2. And then they can be just full of board games.
Right.
That's awesome.
There. That's my prep for.
That's smart.
Well, something I've done in the past when I've traveled is then you can take your clothes, clean or dirty, if the games are wrapped in shrink, doesn't matter, and kind of use those as bubble wrap for those games coming back. Like you literally use your own clothing to protect the games in the suitcase.
Oh, smart. Okay, and I got to punch stuff apparently too. So, oh my gosh, so many things.
Oh yeah, because it's heavier with the punch board.
Yes. Okay, I got to write all this down. But yes, thank you for that tip. I appreciate that.
So, also, just going into the last final question before we close out, but which games have taught you to become like a better person or a gamer too? Like, is there a specific game or a specific type of game or something that you've kind of learned from? I guess I'll go first.
Yeah. You're going first. Sorry, that's my fault.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, but I think games in general, I'm a pretty patient person. So I think I've learned to become a little bit more patient with people picking and choosing what they want to do. Also teaching a game, learning like how people learn versus like audio or visual or something like that. So I definitely try to kind of see how people react to how I'm teaching. And but basically it's all like patience. I've learned a lot more patience because people are all different. So it's easy to kind of get a little panicky or wigged out because someone's just not paying attention to you or something like that. But just have a little bit more patience with them and kind of interact. And it's all for fun anyways. So that's definitely something that that games have taught me. And it's a good virtue to have.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I guess we got a question in the chat for me. Someone asked what I think of the Orville, which is the kind of Star Trek inspired series by Seth MacFarlane. I actually haven't watched it yet. So
I really like it.
I've heard mostly good things, and Seth MacFarlane, I've enjoyed a lot of his content in the past, but I'm not always 100% on board with his stuff and some of the humor that he incorporates into his stuff. So I'm not gonna watch it, but I kind of was like, you know what, maybe I'm gonna wait a little bit on the Orville, let it hopefully come into its own, because I know series like that can also be like kind of change and evolve, and so I wanted to like give that one some time, and especially since that and Discovery were starting around the same time, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do Discovery and we'll maybe pick up the Orville later. So I haven't watched it, so I don't have an opinion, but I will at some point. And then, so as far as how games have changed me, when I was younger, I was definitely the type of person who was, well, and still probably today, but especially when I was younger, kind of a perfectionist, the type who in school like hated group projects because I wanted to control everything and make sure that everything was up to my own personal standards. And when you're in a group setting, that's not always the case. And I think specifically like cooperative games have kind of taught me how to relinquish control to some degree, and especially in a game setting, like what's the worst that will happen? You'll lose the game and no ill will come of that, obviously. And I think I've also learned in tangent with that and with other games that winning is definitely not the most important thing. I'm not a super cutthroat player to begin with. Generally my thing is I don't really enjoy coming in last. Anything else I'm okay with. And like occasionally I do come in last, and that's fine, and I've learned how to process that and deal with it. But I think teaching me how to be a more gracious winner and loser and how to work with other people in different scenarios has been a big benefit to me personally through a lot of different games.
Yeah,
that's great.
The not winning thing is definitely a big one. I've made a long journey from being a super perfectionist in high school to now, like, really, like, the therapist side of me now being like, imperfection is wonderful. Let's all talk about it. So, like, but for me, I think what games have helped me do to become a better person is actually a lot of what Mandi was talking about before, of, like, teaching me how to stay true to myself, even when other people think I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. Because a lot of times in some of the like bigger Euro games, I have things that I'm not a super confrontational player. That's not how I want to play. That's not how I enjoy a game. And so if we're playing if we're playing Twilight Imperium, I'm going to spend a lot of time building up my army. I'm probably not going to attack you with it. I will defend myself, but so that gets sometimes a lot of feedback, a lot of criticism from other people who I'm playing with. And I have really, really learned to understand what I'm comfortable with as a player and where I need to push myself and where I need to just be okay with standing my ground and being like, nope, this is what I want to do. And so I think that has carried over into other parts of my life as well. But just knowing myself more, knowing what I'm good with.
I can
You
totally
sound like-
relate to that.
Yeah.
So,
You sound like
yeah.
a similar type of gamer to me. The whole not enjoying confrontation, but will mess with you if you mess with me, kind of.
Right. Like I always end Twilight Imperium with like 2 of those big Death Star ships, and just like they're in my territory. It's just like a little warning.
Oh, sorry, doggy problems over here.
Yay, doggy.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm exactly like that. I think, well, I know I'll talk a bit about it when it gets to my point, but yes, I can totally understand some of the things that Crystal and Erin were talking about. Absolutely. So now, I always, when I get to this, I feel like I repeat myself a lot when I talk about, games that have taught me to become a better person or gamer, and it all comes back to the same thing. So I'm the type of person who loses a lot. And it's usually because when I play a game, especially for the first time, I'm a random player. I will do whatever because I need to figure the game out.
Right.
So I don't have a strategy. I just do stuff and see what happens. You know what I mean? So I think there's not a specific game in mind that I'm thinking of. I mean, I'm just generally not confrontational. And it's exactly what you ladies were saying. So someone is, if you're all up in my face, okay, well, it's on, okay? But I generally don't like to go that approach. I think I work in mental health and wellness. So that's my day job. I work with military and civilian, but mostly on the civilian side. So I'm always trying to take different perspectives. And maybe sometimes I have to kind of say, okay, this person plays aggressively. Why do they play like that? Maybe that's just the way they play. And they may not know that they're putting somebody else off. So I think I may have to just kind of maybe be a little bit more patient and potentially just kind of understand a bit better how that person plays. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way, but just kind of maybe understand where they're coming from. And then in turn, they can understand where I'm coming from.
And it's not personal.
Right. Because sometimes I feel that maybe I'm a little sensitive to that. I can feel like someone's doing it on purpose. And that's not always the case. It's just like when I play randomly, I'm not doing it to throw the game or do it on purpose. That's just the way that I learn. So that's something that I would say I'm trying to work on and continue to work on, especially considering I work in a field where I'm trying to encourage people to be well. I need to do the same. So, yeah.
I think in general, like gaming, the whole hobby has just taught us to be like patient and just kind of learn a lot. I mean, I've learned so much just being in this hobby alone, just learning how to do YouTube videos, learning how to meet new people and such. So, and then just crossing over to like, where can we find you guys? Where can we find you on the internet? On YouTube, on, the audio podcasting and such. So Erin, can you let us know where we can find you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter. My personal Twitter is super_eMarie. And then we also have at Cardboard News and at Great Way Games. We have Facebook pages for both of those. If you go to Facebook and just search for Cardboard Republic or Great Way Games, they're there. Cardboard Republic also has Instagram and YouTube. And I would highly suggest our YouTube videos if you're watching this. And if you're more into the Great Way Games thing, go check out our Twitter feed because we do a lot of pet pictures. Like a lot of animal pictures. So I would go there.
I love that.
Yeah, and your snails.
And a lot of snails. Yeah, I love my snails.
And coming from somebody who also has a Slack channel, so take this with the weight that it has, but the Great Way Games Slack channel is the best. It's so good. It's
really great.
I love our Blitz Slack channel, don't get me wrong, but the Great Way Games Slack channel is a level of wonderful ridiculousness that I can't describe. So if you like Erin's content, go back Great Way Games on Patreon and go support them because you get access to the Slack if nothing else. For me, I am on Twitter. Basically, for the podcast, we are Board Game Blitz anywhere you can search for us. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and then Board Game Geek. We have a guild. It's guild number 2581. And then our website, boardgameblitz.com, has links to all of that. So if you just remember one thing, that's the thing. And then I'm on Twitter personally as well, at Crystal Pisano. And my personal Twitter feed is not entirely board games, but it tends to be a lot. If you like Star Trek, that's there too. So
And dogs.
And dogs.
And I'll give a tiny plug later today. Actually, we're the Blitz crew, me, Ambi, and Cassidy are doing a live stream on YouTube and Twitch at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be some silly nonsense. We're going to play a modified version of the game Speak Out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's going to get a little silly. And we're still taking suggestions in our Board Game Geek Guild for funny board game related phrases that we will have to say while wearing the ridiculous mouth apparatuses. So, if you want to make us say silly things, head over to our Board Game Geek Guild and then, join us for our live stream this afternoon/evening. It should be a lot of fun.
I'm going to try and join in if I can while I'm getting my hair done. So thank you for telling us. So for me, I'm in a few different places. You can find me with To Die For Games, and we actually have a website, todieforgames.com, and actually everything is listed there, the Facebook, the Twitter, all of that. You can also find me, Board Gaming Pinup Girl, on Twitter. You can also find me on Facebook. I feel like I'm Instagram and also on Twitch. And that kind of leads me into the Dice Tower, where we stream every second week on the podcast. I'm also on Board Game Breakfast. And we are now officially, with my friend Michael, who I forgot to mention, streaming every Monday night through Twitch and through the Dice Tower.
Nice.
Cool. And I am Nettersplays. I have this YouTube channel and also Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me all there. Occasionally, I'll just go ahead and, go on to the Our Turn podcast and say a little thing there. And so it's just all on Twitter. If you follow me there, you can get all the updates of who else I collaborate with. But all under Nettersplays.
Very cool. And I almost forgot to mention, thank you to everyone in the chat. I know we tried to get through as many questions as possible. So thank you so much. And some of you I know are a bit confused. This used to be streamed through To Die For Games. Without going into too much of it, it will now for the next little bit be streaming through Nettersplays YouTube channel.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And it's really great talking and catching up with you all. So thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you
Thanks,
so much
guys.
for
This
hosting.
has been awesome.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it a lot.
All right. So we'll talk with you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.